What's up guys, the Gang Dragon here, and for today's episode on my Payday 2 Armory, I'll be covering up the Soviet AK-74, or Automatic Kalashnikova Model 1974, is a Russian weapon, of course a fully automatic weapon, of course made in Soviet Union by the designer Mikhail Kalashnikov and the manufacturer of Izmash, or was formerly Izmash until they call it Kalashnikov Concern. Of course, this was, as the name suggests, it was made in 1974 and is in service and still being used today, even though they're looking for a weapon to replace it, which would be the AK-12. And also it's also in service in 1991 to present as the AK-74M, probably a more modern update version of the classic. So of course this was designed to replace the AK-47 and AKM with a more unique, different caliber, as most AK fires from the 7.62 by 39mm round. They went ahead and decided to switch their caliber to the intermediate caliber to face off with the West, or the NATO, with their NATO's 5.56 by 45mm. The Russians come up with their own intermediate caliber, the 5.45 by 39mm round. So it's a much more lighter caliber and definitely rivals it with the 5.56. So we have the AK rifle, which is a medium damage assault rifle, but let's actually look at the stats. We have a magazine capacity of 30 rounds, total ammo of 150, rate of fire of 652 RPM, or roughly around 650, damage of 56, accuracy of 48, stability of 60, concealment of 16, fret of 14, and a reload time of 3.9 seconds, which is roughly 4. So the weapon looks similar in many ways, just like the AKM, which are both have a similar model, but I'll get to it. And I do have a fully decked out M79. I have like many others as well. So here's my armored version of the weapon. Of course, I'll get to the attachments later on. And my other one is, well, my crits build. So of course I will show up the two, but for now let's look at the gun model and see how it looks. Well, since I already covered the gun model with the AKM, there's really not much to cover up around the 74 other than the muzzle brake, the little, almost like a little wire underneath the barrel, and the magazine itself and the stock. Everything else, the gun model is essentially the same and identical of the AKM. Now you can see the muzzle brake is a lot more different compared to the, well, you see it on the AKM. Now, the reason for the purpose with these little holes, these little openings to the side, it allows for the gas or the flash to go from both of those sides and prevent the shooter basically being flashed or blind by its flash from the gun. After all, you get muzzle flash, and of course if you're using the iron sight with muzzle flash, it makes acquiring targets harder if you keep firing full auto. So the purpose of this is to help the user to see better and move the flash out of the sights of the player's eye view. And of course the magazine is of course very aluminum. It's of course a, well, it's either aluminum or plastic, rounds, and it's not very curved as the AKMs. And that's probably due to the fact of the caliber. These are very lightweight, so you can be able to carry more rounds in the field compared to the AKM. And of course we have the skeletal stock, where the AKM has a folding stock. So this particular variant is called the AK-74. The S is for the stock. So, like I said, not really much to go around because I did cover this gun up. It used the same model, had the same serial number, also same fire selector. But the only difference is, as well, is the upper receiver. It looks more nice and clean. It doesn't have those little rigged lines crossing from the receiver. It's essentially similar to the RPK and the PB-19 Bison. Alright, let's look over the attachments and what you can put on the AK-74. Now, bear in mind, these are probably, just like the AKM, you can just fit the exact same attachments, so you can pick any barrel choices you want. Any barrel extensions, including the own Soviet PBS suppressor, any boost, any custom. You can put a scope mount once you put a sight, any foregrip, gadget, any of the AK grips, any type of the AK magazine, any type of sight, and of course, just like the AKM, if you put on a sight, you will actually have it right on the handguard of the weapon, which normally I don't like where it's placed. So thankfully, they Overkill added a scope mount, which of course you had to get the Butcher AK/Car mod pack to apply it. Of course, it does provide a nice extra stability as well, if you're into that. And of course we have the stock. Now the only uniqueness to it is it has the folding stock, and so does the RPK. I think these are the only two weapons in the AK family to have this type of stock. However, it does function the same thing as the skeletal stock for the other AK weapons, or AK families of weapons. They both, of course, increase +2 concealment, but you lose 4 stability. So you can definitely see it almost looks like an AKM with that style stock. And of course, if you put on the classic stock, well, you get the AK-74. And of course, with just the folding stock, it's an AK-74. And now I'm gonna show you my two fully decked out, well, one fully decked out AK-74. And this is one for my armor build. I mean, it looks okay. It's all nice and black. Of course, I got my I got my key mod rail. I got the AK quad stag mount. I got the AK plastic grip, the war-torn stock, the scope mount. I also picked the Seymour sight because that's the only thing that's the closest thing we have to a Cobra sight or a Russian optic, which I still want Overkill to add. And if they do, I will replace the Seymour sight with whatever sight they put in, if it's a Russian, because I just love to fit that theme. And as for my crits build, of course it's all about concealment. Of course I do have that, the bigger barrel suppressor, the speed pull mag, the crab's rail, the AK rubber grip, the folding stock, the comparison compensator. So pretty small. It doesn't look the best, but it kind of still works. And yeah, that's it about it, about the AK history. I know I didn't cover a lot with the gun model, but considering the fact that this just used the same thing as the AKM, let me just show you a quick one here. You can see these two compared to each other. Of course, we see what the 74 looks like, and then here's the AKM. You can see of course, the muzzle brake looks a little more different. Doesn't have that little wire at the bottom of the barrel. The magazine is, of course, more curved and, of course, very metallic. We have the folding stock, and of course, you can see the upper receiver. It has these ragged lines, so it's like a little bit worn out or a little bit rusted. It's like it's been used in the field compared to the 74. But that's well, that's a bunch info about the AK-74. Now let's see the 74 in action. Alright, welcome back to the firing range, where I'll be firing off with the AK-74, and just like the AKM, I love how shiny and how very polished the handguard is, especially when you're under the sun. Looks really nice, including the upper receiver. Looks pretty nice. I love the orange magazine. Yeah, it's such a classic gun. Well, let's get something loaded up, and let's see what it can do. Alright, going hot. Of course, even if I did aim perfectly with semi-auto, the bullets does bounce up from either side to side, and you can see the recoil I shoot. Went a little bit up, well down a little bit, then went to the left, and then does a 45-degree angle to the right, and I am right to the pipes. So even though it does fire more intermediate caliber, it still does have some kick to it, and it does have a slow rate of fire, but still has some kick to it, just like in an AK, any AK would. Alright, I'm gonna do, of course, just like every other test with many weapons, I'll let the recoil do its thing, and I won't even try to control it. Going hot. So the weapon does have pretty much very strong vertical recoil. There is a bit of horizontal, but the gun will just go basically just straight up and just bounce from side to side. So making the recoil pretty much easy to predict. Alright, now I'll go at test 3 this time, where this time I will try to recoil and try to be in the same center level as this line up to this garage door. Alright, here goes. Well, definitely a lot better than test 2. But of course, the moment that I do try to control the recoil down, the gun does decide to bounce from side to side. So it went a little bit down to the left and then up there. So you still manage to control the gun, which is pretty straightforward. And I also appreciate the iron sights. Normally, when I first look at these iron sights, and mostly in most video games, COD 4 for example, I used to despise these iron sights. But the more time I use them, the more time I appreciate it, and very enjoying these sights, as well how very thin it is, basically setting up a attachment slot. And of course I love how it is able to require targets very easily. And of course I have the exact same range Of course, you have the range adjustment finder, just like the AKM has. But yeah, well, that's it for the base version. Let's see how well my fully decked out can do. I'll bring it out in a second. Alright, welcome back. And of course, here's my fully decked out AK-74. And of course, you can see how could be a little bit bulky, especially with the scope mount in a way, but doesn't really affect me because I usually aim a lot, and the only time I would hit fire would be in extremely close quarters. So let's see how this weapon performs. And bear in mind that I have the weapon locked in full auto, so try and fire this thing in semi-auto is not gonna do anything, but since the weapon has a low rate of fire, I can easily still make it semi-auto thanks to its rate of fire. Going hot. Even like so many attachments for built for accuracy and stability and single fire, at least tap firing it, the bullets still go over the place. Of course, you can see when I fire full auto, the recoil, the vertical recoil goes up, climbs up very slowly. And that's because it helps because I have so many attachments that increase stability to make it very more effective. And probably more easier to control. I apologize for the blow up because of course when I aim I was shifting a little bit to the left, which normally shouldn't happen. Alright, now we see how the recoil climbs up slowly. Let's see if how slowly it can reach the top. I would say it's probably going to end up somewhere between the pipe here and the vent, between here. We'll see how it goes. Alright. Firing at will. Okay, so I'm basically was half off. Of course, when the gun starts to recoil, it decides to stay here and bounce from side to side. So it definitely reached the mark of the stability of where the weapon can go uncontrollably. Okay, for this sake, I'm just gonna grab more ammo. Don't know how much round, but let's say I need to reload. Nope, I don't have to reload, so I would have been good, but I want to make sure. Alright, this time I will try to control the recoil this time, and hopefully it does better than the base version. Alright, going hot. Ooh-wee! That was probably the most controllable weapon I have ever done. Out of most of the guns, it was so hard to control because they would just go out bounce from side to side and down. If I try to control it down, it just decided to go either the left or the right. But with this, I stayed perfectly in tight grouping as I can, and I was able to control it with no problem. I say that tactic's more viable when you're doing it for, say, at medium ranges. For long range, you just want to burst fire a little bit. And what's really sucks is that this weapon doesn't, or mostly in this game, there's no free round burst option. There's only single fire and fully automatic, which kind of sucks. Which I would love to see more a burst fire mechanic, because it would actually create a lot more variety in terms of the weapons. I mean, could you imagine having the burst fire assault rifle or a pistol, or even a burst fire SMG? That would be actually the best thing in the world. Alright, enough talk about the burst fire. Now I'll be deciding, well, now I'll bring out the my stealth version, but I won't do the same test because they're practically the same. I'll just show how it looks. See you in a second, guys. Alright, here's my crits version of the AK-74. Now I'm not going to go over much of the test here because, well, I figured showing off the weapon twice with all 3 tests, or at least 2 tests, is already enough. But here's what it looks like. Doesn't look that appealing. Let's see how it performs. Okay, somehow I made a T shape at the bottom, even though the gun actually covers it. Definitely has some recoil. Alright, for this one, of course, I'll just let the recoil go flow. That's pretty much about it. And of course, well, I did say I won't do the 3rd test, but considering how quick this weapon will be, might as well do it. I'll do it in the center. Man, okay, I think this one was even harder to control the recoil or in a type grouping compared to the base version of the AK-74. You can see that's a big difference if you favor off crits and you lose accuracy and stability. But roughly you make up for it with the certain skills, especially when you have it with suppressors. But well, that's it about the AK-74, and a lot of well done playing with it. I'll give you guys my final conclusion on it. See you in a second. Overall, the AK-74 is, I say, it's a bit above average. I'm not saying the weapon is bad, but it's not really good either because it just gets outclassed by certain weapons, especially in its same medium damage category. Especially on the PC version where you have the F2000, the TAR-21, and even some of the handful of the medium damage ARs are just frankly better than this weapon. They have a faster rate of fire, they probably have more unique attachments, and they're just much more better, and plus they probably have way more concealment than the AK-74, and even though I still, in my opinion, I still prefer the AK-5 over the AK-74. Just because it has that one extra rate of fire. And yes, the AK-74 does have like one more crits involved, but the rate of fire is just a bit too slow for my take. And honestly, I would love to see this weapon get a little bit of a buff. And to me, I think a good buff would be at least make it the same damage level, or at least have a little more of a damage increase, because the rate of fire is just too slow to try and compete with the likes of many other weapons, like I mentioned, the F2000 and the TAR-21. They have like 800 to 857 RPM, and they have the exact same magazine option as the AK-74, except they're much more concealed, and they just have a faster rate of fire in general. Though I do say it is a fun gun, and I do love the gun model they have. Plus, I do rock the AK-74 from time to time. Even though it's not my favorite rifle, it's still a pretty rifle to look at. In Soviet Russia, pretty things can kill. And thank you for watching, everyone. Until next time, farewell, and have a wonderful day, everyone.